admit, watching Joseph Wall, though, I was. This is me. I don't know if it's you or any other Leaf fan, but there's always a sense of, is he going to get up? Is he?
Oh, yeah.
You have that too.
But, it's not like Samsonov. Remember Samsonov used to shake it out after everything?
Yeah, there's no
Dramatics.
there's no
right?
drama involved in that, but
Yeah, Wall's not
it's
like doing
just,
that. It's just,
I think for Leaf fans, it's just the way it is, and
this is uncomfortable.
like, I made a comment. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago that perhaps the Leafs the goaltending depth has never been better.
Yeah.
Right, and perhaps they can use one of them as a bargaining chip, but like I don't know if they
You
can.
need them all.
And
Collect all four.
it's just the way it is that you don't know if at any given point that any of these guys are going to disappear. They do have a history there, and how can you move one of them? And we'll include Matt Murray, who all indications are will be called up and start tomorrow night in Buffalo.
He'll actually. So you've been saying since the start of this year. So actually, in April last year, maybe you were saying Murray's name.
JB, I'm not a guy to go find tape.
Don't, Jerry.
But
Run it back.
I would like to see if we could find at some point last year when I told you guys that Matt Murray's career could not necessarily be over with the Toronto Maple Leafs, despite having double hip surgery.
And now,
And you guys looked at me like I had three heads.
no, I'm going to show you my reaction, which I think was like, and it was not about
Yes.
not believing you or not about believing. It just was, I had seen him play for the Leafs.
Yeah.
He had looked rigid and stiff and also, very injury prone. So to me, it's like, do we want to go through this again? And so now he has a surgery, right? Like a pretty serious surgery. He apparently is freed up.
Two
He's
of 'em.
feeling better. Two surgeries? Okay.
2 hip surgeries.
Okay.
They had both of them done.
God. And obviously moving well enough that he's lighting up the American League. Stats are somewhere at 931 in 8 games in the American League. So, listen.
And a shutout last night.
And so 2 Stanley Cups. He's only 30 years old,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. And he's an 931 in
Yeah.
the American League coming
Yeah.
off a shutout. Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
I mean, he's earned it, right? I mean, and I'm at the point where I'm no longer looking at the Leafs going, show me the guy with potential who could be this, whatever. It's like, give me the guy who's done it, who has been in these moments before and has proven he can do it. I'm ready for it. I'm just surprised to hear they would call him and he would start just like immediately. But
I don't think that decision was necessarily made until after they felt comfortable enough of watching him last night.
mhm.
So there was the thought of see, now I'm going to call him a hillbilly again, and I can't get that word out of my mind right now.
Hillbilly is great.
All right, the Hildebeest.
Yes.
I think there was a thought of perhaps maybe squeezing one more start out of him and leaving Matt Murray with another start on the weekend. But I think last night they felt comfortable enough to say, with his experience and he's feeling it and he's feeling good, just do it now.
Yeah, I'm torn because Hildeby has been okay in his starts with the Leafs, and I feel like I'd like to see him get more experience. It seems like he's going to be a part of the organization. I like the idea of him playing, but it's a tight battle for the top of this division. If you feel like Murray can give you a bit more, and if you're Hildeby looking at Murray, I think you're going, I get it. Like he's killing it in the American League. I think you understand why Matt Murray would get the opportunity ahead of you, would you not?
All right, let's go to Craig Berube on Matt Murray.
Clip.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll look at things, for sure. But that's encouraging. That's great for him and the Marlies. And, this guy's got a lot of experience, and he's won. So, like I said, we'll look at everything and make some decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I give Matt Murray some credit here for looking at where he was last year and know that it went really ugly in Ottawa to the point where he's kicked to the curb basically.
Yep.
Gets traded to Toronto in a in a trade that I know at the time you weren't too happy about.
No.
And many others. Like, if he's not good enough for Ottawa, how can he be good enough for the Maple Leafs?
Right.
Comes in early, much like what we experienced this year with, can he stay healthy? That it's a standard question now for the Toronto Maple Leaf goaltending. It's not, are they any good? It's, can they stay healthy? All of them now. It just seems like they're completely blanketed over that term.
They've cornered the market on
And
fragile, talented
The
players.
answer was no, Matt Murray, you can't.
No.
You go into this scenario where your season's written off and end up with these major surgeries, or major as they sound when you're talking about hips. And yet, he wants to come back, knowing that if he does come back and if the Leafs presented him an opportunity to come back, that you are no longer seen as a NHL goalie. You're going to have to start with the Marlies and work your way back up. And that, I would think, for a 2-time Stanley Cup champion would be a kick in the nuts with a speed skate.
But I also think that changes my perception of him, not just as a player, but as a person. Someone who's willing to swallow the Buckleys there, the bad tasting medicine, and say, tastes bad, but it works.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
if it's going to get me back where I want to be.
And
He's riding the bus in the American
That's
League.
the interesting part, is because you're watching now coming out of training camp, right? You leave training camp, you go to the Marlies, you watch Wall and Stolarz stay. You watch them. You watch Stolarz
Tear it up.
looking like George Vezina up until a week ago. Joseph Wall, of course, gets hurt early but comes back, and you're like, there's no, where would I ever think that I could get back in again?
Yeah. Oh, and Akhtimov's doing great, and Hildeby's a top prospect, and it's tough to find your way in. Here we are, game 32-ish, whatever it is.
And now, maybe he's up for 4 weeks. Maybe he's up for the rest of the year. Maybe he goes back down and continues to light it up in the American Hockey League. And maybe he is in a position, or maybe the Leafs don't feel like he's in a position to move him. But at least he has turned himself into an asset again.
He's playing for his career, right? Like, look around the league. Teams are desperate for a guy with some experience who can play 6'5", 220, and as you mentioned, the Cup. So he holds appeal. If he can come up to the Leafs and play 5 good games for them, I think you have a real asset on your hands, but you might need him because your goalies are made of paper mache.
And Hildeby has come down to earth a little bit, I think, with the lack of experience and a lot of probably things going on in his head. I mean,
so
you
much
can't be
weight on a few games, though,
Well, that's the Toronto Maple Leaf way, though.
Yeah.
There's the rest of the league, and then there's that media hype of having every game feel like it's almost Game 7 for some of these guys. And, I think the kid did well when he was in there, or as well as can be expected. But there is a look at him that says you're not an NHL goalie just yet.
Yeah.
And I think that plays into the fact that he's not necessarily getting the start tomorrow night.
He needs to play hockey. It's, almost Christmas here, and he started 9 games this year, 6 for the Marlies, 3 for the Leafs. Like, that's not great for him because they're getting Matt Murray starts, they're getting Akhtimov starts. So Hildeby needs to goaltend. He's 23 years old and 6'7". He needs to play goal. So wherever
Leafs facing center crisis amid injuries, eyeing trade market for solutions. As the Toronto Maple Leafs battle through a growing injury list and a suspension, their lack of depth at the center position has become a glaring issue. According to Sportsnet's Elliotte Friedman in his latest 32 Thoughts article, the Leafs are among the teams exploring trade options to bolster their lineup. This effort is coming amid increasing competition from teams like the Chicago Blackhawks and Nashville Predators, who have also set their sights on improving their center depth. Friedman didn't mince words about the Leafs' predicament. The teams currently focusing on centers, including Chicago and Nashville, must consider when others will enter the market. Toronto will undoubtedly be one of those teams, he wrote. While the Blackhawks and Predators may have an edge in terms of cap space and assets, the Leafs remain a team to watch as the season progresses. The Leafs situation is urgent, with up to 7 forwards currently unavailable due to injury or suspension. Ryan Reeves is serving a 5-game suspension, while key players like Austin Matthews, upper body, Matthew Knies, upper body, Kaje Jarnkrok, groin/sports hernia, David Kampf, lower body, Max Domi, lower body, and Max Pacioretty, lower body, are all sidelined. The team has even considered temporarily shifting Mitch Marner to the center position, highlighting the severity of their depth issues. This isn't just a short-term concern for the Leafs. Depth at center has been a persistent challenge for the team, and while stopgap solutions like Marner could help in the interim, the front office appears keen to explore longer-term fixes. For fans of the blue and white, this has been a recurring theme. The Leafs' center depth often becomes a problem at the worst possible times. James Myrtle of The Athletic recently added more fuel to the speculation, naming several potential trade targets who could help the Leafs address their issues. Among them is Ryan O'Reilly, a familiar name for Toronto fans. O'Reilly, who signed a 4-year, $18 million deal with Nashville in 2023, might be a trade candidate if the Predators' underwhelming start to the season, 6-11-3, 31st in the league, prompts a rebuild. However, his steep price tag and history with the Leafs, including rejecting a free agency offer less than 2 years ago, make this a complex and potentially unlikely move. Other names mentioned by Myrtle include former Leaf Nazem Kadri, currently with Calgary, as well as players like Michael Granlund, Nick Jugstad, Brock Nelson, Yanni Gourde, Trent Frederick, Radek Faksa, and Sean Kuraly. While some of these options seem more plausible than others, it's clear that general manager Brad Treliving will need to get creative to find the right piece without mortgaging the team's future. Cap space remains one of the biggest obstacles for the Leafs. Unlike teams like Chicago and Nashville, which have more flexibility and assets, Toronto is walking a financial tightrope. As Friedman noted, competition will intensify as cap-constrained teams strive to create room. For the Leafs, that could mean waiting for the market to develop further, a risky move given their current needs. The situation also highlights the Leafs' ongoing struggle to build a roster that can withstand the grueling nature of an NHL season. Injuries are an inevitability in hockey, but Toronto's current predicament underscores the importance of depth, a quality the team has struggled to consistently maintain. Looking back on recent years, the Leafs have often leaned heavily on their star players, particularly Matthews, Marner, and William Nylander. While these players have delivered in spades, the lack of reliable depth options has left the team vulnerable in critical moments. The current crisis at center is merely the latest example of this recurring issue. Some fans have called for more aggressive moves from Treliving, arguing that now is the time to strike while the team's core is in its prime. Others, however, are more cautious, pointing to the dangers of overpaying for short-term fixes. Striking the right balance will be key, especially as the Leafs aim to keep their championship window open. Despite the challenges, there's no denying that Toronto has the talent to be a contender, provided they can patch up their lineup. The ongoing rumors and speculation surrounding potential trades show that the Leafs are at least exploring every avenue to strengthen their roster. For fans of the blue and white, this moment feels like a pivotal point in the season. With a lineup ravaged by injuries and a tough schedule ahead, the Leafs must act decisively to avoid falling behind in the standings. The addition of a dependable center could be the difference between weathering the storm or watching another season slip away. Whether it's O'Reilly, Kadri, or another surprise name, one thing is certain: the Leafs are under pressure to deliver. And for a fan base as passionate and loyal as Toronto's, there's no room for excuses. The time to act is now, and Leafs Nation is watching closely. As the trade deadline approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will Treliving pull off a move that solidifies the Leafs' status as a contender, or will the search for center depth become yet another chapter in the team's long history of what-ifs? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, it's never boring in Leafs land. As the Maple Leafs navigate this critical juncture, their fan base remains as vocal as ever. Toronto is a city that breathes hockey, and the pressure on Brad Treliving to make the right moves is immense. Every decision he makes, or doesn't make, will be scrutinized, from talk radio to social media, where Leafs Nation is already debating the merits of the various names being floated as potential trade targets. Among the louder debates is whether the team should prioritize a high-profile acquisition like Ryan O'Reilly or Nazem Kadri, or focus on a lower-cost, reliable center who can fill a supporting role without costing too many future assets. While O'Reilly's leadership and playoff experience make him an attractive option, his contract and recent history with the Leafs add layers of complexity to any potential reunion. Similarly, Kadri's gritty, two-way playstyle remains a fan favorite, but his cap hit and availability might render him an unrealistic target. Another factor complicating the Leafs situation is their tight salary cap. While Chicago and Nashville can make moves with relative ease due to their financial flexibility, Toronto must navigate a labyrinth of constraints to make any trade work. This likely means including salary retention or moving existing contracts to make room, which could drive up the cost of any potential deal. The question then becomes, how much are the Leafs willing to sacrifice to address their immediate needs? One potential trade partner generating buzz is the Seattle Kraken. Yanni Gourde, a dependable two-way center, has been mentioned as a possible target. Gourde's versatility and championship pedigree from his time with Tampa Bay make him an appealing option. Seattle, however, is in playoff contention and may not be inclined to part with a key piece unless the Leafs can provide a substantial return. Another intriguing name is Brock Nelson of the New York Islanders. Nelson is a consistent scorer and reliable faceoff man, qualities that would undoubtedly bolster Toronto's center depth. However, the Islanders are notoriously cautious when it comes to trades, and prying Nelson away would likely require a significant package, including picks or prospects that the Leafs may be hesitant to part with. For all the trade talk, some analysts believe the solution might come from within. Sheldon Keefe has shown a willingness to experiment with his lineup, and players like Pontus Holmberg or Fraser Minton could be given an opportunity to step up. While relying on less experienced players carries risks, it might be the Leafs' only option if the trade market proves too costly or slow to develop. Adding to the Leafs' urgency is the timing. The Atlantic Division remains one of the toughest in the league, with teams like Boston, Florida, and Tampa Bay continuing to dominate. Any prolonged slump could see Toronto slip further down the standings, putting their playoff hopes in jeopardy. For a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, failing to address their weaknesses could have catastrophic consequences. Brad Treliving's history as a general manager suggests he's not afraid to make bold moves. His time with the Calgary Flames was marked by blockbuster trades, including the acquisition of Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar in the Matthew Tkachuk deal. Leafs fans hope he brings that same decisiveness to Toronto, especially as the trade deadline looms. Beyond the immediate need for a center, this situation underscores a broader issue with the Leafs roster construction. Depth has been a perennial concern, and while Toronto boasts some of the league's top-end talent, their reliance on a handful of stars has left them vulnerable in moments like this. Moving forward, addressing this imbalance must be a priority for the front office if the team is to achieve sustained success. As the Leafs head into a critical stretch of the season, the next few weeks could define their trajectory.